Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Colonel Atin Basu, Roberts Professor of Free Enterprise Economics. Welcome to the annual John W. and Jane M. Roberts Institute Lecture in Free Enterprise. This event, like many in the Economics and Business Department, is possible because of the benevolence of the late Jane and John Roberts. Their support, admiration, and high regard for VMI, stretching over several decades, was due in large part to their personal experiences with cadets and faculty. Those interactions were the foundation for their advocacy of VMI and its unique system of education, and also for the phrase American Free Enterprise in VMI's mission statement. So, with that said, I'd like to introduce our Roberts speaker today, Sean Matson, class of 05. He's co-founder and CEO of Madbach and the co-founder and president of Strikeforce Beverage. I might add, many of our students use his product. Mr. Matson graduated with a BS in civil engineering from VMI. He then spent 13 years as a Navy SEAL officer with multiple deployments in, it says strategic here, but it's probably exotic and warm locations. In June 2018, he left the reserves to focus full-time on his business ventures, which include co-founder and CEO of Madbach, a company dedicated to providing innovative solutions to warfighters, co-founder and president of Strikeforce Energy, a single-serve energy liquid packet, and co-founder and president of Aciso Plasma, a medical device company. In a Forbes article, Mr. Matson was described as exemplifying, and I quote, military veterans turned entrepreneurs who have a unique tenacity and skill set. In an article in military.com, he is described as leveraging grit learned on the battlefield to overcome personal hardship and launch a successful brand. We look forward to hearing more about his experiences. Without further ado, Mr. Matson. Thanks, sir.
Good evening. I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight, and hopefully don't disappoint anybody. Starts off with a sound of a buzzing, the ringing of an alarm going off at the middle of the night. You look down, you see your pager going off, you see 911. Immediately, you jump up, you're running down to the jock to see what situation is, what's going on. Quickly, you see your senior enlisted advisor, you see your other team leaders there as well, gathering critical information as we're getting ready to step out on this time-sensitive target TST mission. Right now, time's roughly 1 o'clock in the morning. We just finished mid-rats. We walked into what is now going to be us going after our number 5 HVT high-value target for tonight. All my guys now are positioned in strategic positions in the Joint Operation Center, the JOC, gathering these critical pieces of information. The SCA puts out to everyone, we got 10 minutes, go to the ready room. They wrap up their information gathering, gather documents that we need to go do this mission. We roll to our ready room. The mood in the ready room now is happy-go-lucky, semi-cockiness, that arrogance that comes across as we're listening to music blaring that we're about ready to go kick some ass. We see all my guys and see this picture of my guys and my platoon working to gather their last bit of information, gather their personal belongings, gather their mission-critical gear and equipment to go do this operation. SEA puts out, we've got another 3 minutes to meet up at Vehicle 3. We're going to have our operation order in front of Vehicle 3. Team leaders start briefing their positions, what they're going to do on this particular operation for the night. We start outlining roles, responsibilities for everybody, but also what are our secondary, tertiary, and alternate plans of our roles and responsibilities in that, because as a platoon, you're not just geared towards, like, as for myself, I was a ground force commander or an officer in charge, so I had my role defined, but I also needed to understand how to do the medic's job. I also needed how to do breaching, and I had other roles and responsibilities within the platoon because we're only 16 to 21 guys. So this is all getting hashed out in matters of minutes. So from the time that that alarm went off to now, we've only been in this maybe 15, 20 minutes. Everybody rushing, everybody trying to get everything ready to go out on this mission. Again, we're going after our high-value target. He's the number 5 on our deck, which are usually some of the higher-ranking guys in the organizations. We get all the briefing. The SCA puts out, go ahead, load vehicles, and head count from the rear. Then all of a sudden you hear 6 up, 5's up, 4's up, 3's up, 2's up, 1's up, we're rolling. Immediately we start driving down streets. Now you see this mood change from what was in the ready room of this happy, arrogance, almost cocky feel from everybody to serious warfighter mentality now comes across everybody in the platoon. Faces go stone cold. People are hyper vigilant of what is all around them. You see guys that do have windows calling out possible threats, calling out anything that could possibly be moving. Again, this is roughly 1 o'clock in the morning, so not much is out. As we continue to roll, we get to our target area. I pass out to 01. Hey, 01, this is Megatron. I pass, we are infill complete, or insert complete. We're about ready to start our foot patrol to target. We start foot patrol into target. We set our BPs, our blocking positions. We surround this target. You have now the mood of the guys is this choreographed movement of flowing onto a target, wrapping, surrounding, making sure nothing can get out, right? We're constricting any possibility of our target leaving this area. And it all happens with everybody knowing 2 or 3 other person's job. This happens not by myself, not by my senior enlisted who has any experience, has multiple deployments and a lot of experience. This happens by the teamwork that comes from us and our training and the mentors that we have that trained us and our instructors. So as we flow onto target, we get set, pass out 01, Megatron. I pass commencing assault. Roger, go ahead, commence assault. Now we see the platoon flow again as this choreographed movement, almost harmonistic, where one guy goes, 2 guy goes, and it's just flow through as they're going to clearance problems, as they're tackling little problems as they come up to it, getting back to what we always would call getting back to black. How do we get back to dark? How do we get back to being quiet? Seconds later, scream comes out. Female starts screaming, kids start screaming, male starts screaming in the house. Again, as soon as that goes up, we try to get it back down to being quiet, being black, going dark. And it does. It happens that fast. I mean, as soon as someone comes in, we're sometimes standing over your target. You've just snuck through their entire house, opening up doors, opening up gates, opening up multiple doors to get to their house. You have 4 or 5 guys wearing, roughly 50 to 80 pounds worth of gear in the middle of the night. It's dark in their house, right? They're sleeping. And we were able to creep through like ninjas. And now we're standing over top of this guy, and he has no idea that we're even there. And this happens every single night in a SEAL platoon when you're forward deployed, especially in the times that we're talking here, the height of Iraq and Afghanistan wars. As we start coming off, I pass to 01. This is Megatron, where we are we're target secure. We have jackpot, and we've got 5 prisoners we're going to take off target. Roger that, RTB. So we start heading back to base, start traveling back to base. get there, start this, taking all of our information that we gathered from Target, and now we're starting to hand it off to the intel guys, the admin guys, and starting to work the whole cycle so that we can go back out tomorrow night. This night, went what I thought would be flawless. We got out on target very quickly. We had to, execute it. We got our target. We got our jackpot. He self-PID'd. So we're back on base, and I am now getting ready to debrief 01, so our commander. So all my guys are starting to clean up, work on vehicles, and get ready for the next night so we can go do this again. I walk in to the Joint Operations Center, ask for any other information that maybe I would have missed so I can have all my information that I need to go brief my commander so that he, one, has confidence in me, but two, allows us to go out the next night. So I gather all this information, all the stuff that I already had with us, and I go over to his office, and I knock on his door. 01, this is Megatron. He's like, get in here, Matson. So I come in. All of a sudden, it doesn't feel right. Sitting in there. Usually he's pretty laid back, and this night he was not. So I'm sitting there going, all right, I'm not sure what's going on right now. And then all of a sudden he just barks, and I've never seen him particularly do this. And the only thing I can remember it would be someone like an RDC cadre coming and barking at you for the first time, and it was really out of place for me, because I'd been out now almost 10 years from the rat line. And he yells, get at effing attention right now. I was just blown away. I'm sitting here going, all right, did we lose something? Did we drop something? Like, what happened? And he goes, inscription on the parapet, hit it. I was like, and he goes, get out of here right now, because I had stumbled through the first 5 or 6 words of this, and I was like, oh, that was embarrassing. So I run back to my CHU, container housing unit, and I look up real quickly, all right, inscription on the parapet, because I obviously didn't bring my rap Bible on deployment with me. So I'm sitting here going, this sucks. I'm a lieutenant in the Navy. I'm a SEAL officer. I've been on hundreds of combat deployments. And now I've got this guy, my commander, class of 94, Ryan Crowley, barking at me to tell him the inscription on the parapet. So I remember it. I get it all done. I go back to his office, and I was like, sir, I'm here for rap Bible knowledge. He's like, all right, well, come in. Again, just snaps right to it, right? He was an RDC guy, so snaps right into it, gets on me. He's like, all right, Matson, go. And I was like, started going. He's like, all right, get the F out of here. He was like, I was just messing with you. You did a great job tonight. Just wanted to bust your balls. And I was like, that was awesome. Thanks. So some key takeaways I wanted to come back to on this. I got 3 for you. First thing is first, for the cadets here that are getting ready to join the military, these ops, they're very, very, very few and far between now. Don't expect to go do what you see on, Battlefield, whatever game, and all these other video games that are out there, or TV shows or video games or whatever. Those ops are, like I said, very few and far between. So if someone told you or someone sold you that you're going to go and kick in doors every night, they've lied to you. But I will tell you this. You will be going into a completely different mission that I was going into. And I would also subject to you that these missions are more dangerous than what I just explained on that one. We had stacks of air assets, more support than you could ever imagine on these type of operations. There's nothing special about doing a direct action target or hit. You have some of the basic units, some of the most basic units doing these hits every single night. The same as some of the most elite units, SEALs and Delta and all these other guys that are doing these exact same things. The only difference in there might be a target and his name. But at the end of the day, it's the exact same mission. Those aren't difficult missions at the end of the day. What you're facing now is an enemy you don't know, an enemy that you probably will never know, and in an environment where you have no support. And I'm talking no support. It's not because taxpayers or anything else like that. It's all because of the environment that it is, and that's the ever-changing enemy, and he's continued to change. And these less support to me equals more dangerous. And you go to some of these areas. My last 2 deployments, I was in Africa, where a simple casevac. If I have a guy with life-threatening injuries, it might be 24 to 48 hours before I'm able to get that guy out of there. That was unheard of in the Iraq and Afghanistan days. You had the golden hour, 1 hour, and that guy was basically in a higher level field trauma unit with American surgeons and getting some of the best technology and medicine that's ever been known to man. And now you're facing something completely different where it might take you 24 to 48 hours to get that level of care. So I just want to tell you, first off, you're going into something completely different than what I did, and you have to understand that as you're going into that now. I also would, again, say, I would say that I think it's more dangerous than what we even saw in the height of the Iraq and Afghanistan wars. The other piece I'd like to talk about is being a jack of all trades and a master of none. So the SEAL community, we always talk about this, and it's something that entrepreneurs know and live by all the time, something you probably do yourself here at VMI, and that is you're constantly having to learn and understand other jobs. Myself, a business owner, I know nothing about marketing. Well, I better figure out how to do marketing. I better figure out how to do accounting. I better figure out all these things, at least know enough to have a simple conversation with someone, and then also know enough to know that I don't know any more than this and that I need to get help, right? That's power of the networking piece that I'll get to later and talk about. Another deployment story about this, of being a jack of all trade and a master of none. And this particular operation didn't turn out too well for one person, and it's something that I'll always remember. But we had a very small partner force. It was one of the last ops we were ever on, or I was ever on, combat deployment. We had about 5 SEALs. I was the senior officer, ground force commander, again, on this particular op. I had my JTAC, and I had a couple of team leaders. I didn't have an SCA on this operation just because of a load plan and our numbers that we had to have for foreign partner force as well. So the ratio. So we go out on this mission. This particular night, we had multiple neighborhoods, basically, of their number one guy all meeting to go talk and have an exchange of the region leader was exchanging with the new incoming leader. So they were doing a change of command, basically, ceremony, I guess. We were going to be there to break it all up. And we got about 400 meters from this target. We were doing a helo insert, helo assault force. It's called a half. We were doing this insert. We had about a 2-click offset. We're foot patrolling into target, and we start taking incoming rounds about 400 meters away from us, from the target area. Overhead, again, I had a stack of assets that my JTAC was controlling. We had AC-130s, we had AWT, so Apaches. We even had fast movers that night, as well as 2 or 3 ISR platforms. And the next few seconds after that engage with the target area, I'll never forget, because I just watched about 25 Iraqis, partner force, completely melt right in front of my face. And watch these guys that just got shot at. They have better training, better equipment than the guys we're engaged with right now, and they're standing there behind a berm, basically, that was over here, and we have a couple small buildings that we've come across, and that's where we got engaged with. And I watched these guys completely melt in front of my face. And again, we're 5 guys, 5 Americans, and a partner force. I'm sitting here going, well, either they're going to fight against us or they're going to just stand there. We've got these guys we got to deal with. We don't know how many more they're coming. I'm trying to communicate. I've got internal comms. I've got air assets in one ear, internal comms in another ear, and I'm carrying my man pack 20-pound radio, and I've got that jammed underneath this ear to talk to my commanding officer 01 again, as well as I have to help this guy that just got shot. I'm trying to give him life-saving attention while trying to deconflict and understand the picture of what's going on right now on the battlefield, and that is I've got a team trying to clear, basically doing one-man clearances in these small village houses, as well as a partner force that I have no idea what they're going to do right now, and air assets, and then another situation that I don't know what's going to happen there. So I'm surrounded basically by unknowns that I have no idea what the next move on this chessboard is going to look like. And, oh, by the way, I'm trying to save this guy's life because he just got shot a bunch of times. So I go through my procedures. I start going back and just the simple basic of, okay, I got to go through all my medical procedures. All right, yep, go through everything, get try to get, rake and, feel for bullet holes, patch and do as much as I can through this guy. And ultimately, I got, again, my JTEC. We were able to get him out of there. We ended up losing that guy that night. But talk about being task-saturated in an environment that you have no idea what could possibly happen in a split second. And, I put this back to, again, you have to be a jack of all trades and a master of none, because if it wasn't for how we train and cross-train back and forth of particular disciplines, I don't know how that op would have ended, but I don't think it would have ended the same way that it did, with us getting out there with everybody safely, except for the guy that was ended up being killed. But it could have turned out even a lot worse than what it was. So that night, we lost the one guy, and then actually from that night, I was able to, on the helicopter ride home, invent one of our probably best-selling products that we have from that particular operation, because we had to carry a guy out of off the battlefield and onto a helicopter with a rug and chain link fence. And so that was something that just kind of came from this situation. When you look around at VMI, you see, one, you guys are already successful. If you look at any of your friends or people you went to high school with that are now at JMU or Tech or even the national champions, UVA, you can see how much further you have progressed in 1, 2, 3, or 4 years compared to what they have. And I want to pause here for a second. If you're a VMI alum, would you please stand? I want to say thank you. And so everybody that just stood is a VMI alum, and I can tell you right now, I would not be here if it wasn't for the VMI network. And I'm not saying that just because I got told to come up here and speak to you guys about VMI and my leadership experience, but I'm dead serious. VMI alum, class of '76, Lang Meme from Richmond, Virginia, told me about VMI when I was growing up, and I said, well, that sounds like a great place to go. I should go there. And then he started talking to me about the network and how you leverage networks and how you be successful and leverage and work together to kind of get to that common goal. I had less than 1,000 SAT score and a 3.0 in high school. I wasn't getting into VMI. I think my highest SAT score was 940. So the only reason I got into VMI was from alumni believing in me and calling the admission office and saying, hey, you have to let this kid in. You have to let this kid in. Let him in. I also emailed the admission office about every day and made sure I was going to get into VMI. At graduation, Colonel Beitzel came up afterwards and said, I just want to tell you, I watched you all 4 years. He had my grades before I did. He would come into my room and say, hey, Sean, what happened on that test? So he knew everything about my cadetship. And, but again, it wouldn't have happened without the power of the VMI network and what using and talking to a VMI alum and just saying, hey, I want to go do X. And they are all for it, and they will help you. And all they ever ask for in return is for you to do something to someone else. They don't want money. They don't want any accolades for it. They just want you to help someone else. And that's extremely powerful. And I know if you've been in any of the seminars today, they continually hit on it, and I'm going to continue to hit on it. But if you stood up and you saw one of the guys that stood up, or men or women that stood up for alum, make sure if you have somewhere you want to go and you've talked to one of these and they're there, reach out to them. I'm going to pivot slightly, go into my background. So we went into how I kind of became an entrepreneur. And overall, it kind of came as an accident. It kind of came as a necessity. We were flying up to Alaska in 2006 on a C-130 airplane, and we just put together these cargo pallets. And it took 40 of us about 6 hours to figure out how to stack the gear, then put it on, and my now business partner and I sat there and said, this is the stupidest system I've ever seen in my life. He was a academy grad, so you can make fun of him later about that. But he's a mechanical engineer, and we both had the same mentality that we could figure out how to make this better. So for an 8-hour flight, we sat behind and stared at this cargo net system and redesigned that entire cargo net system. And what had now, that was 2007. We didn't start our company until 2010, and I'd like to point out kind of key things, and you all will see this. You getting into VMI, you could probably go back to one person that had that defining moment that was the one person you talked to, or the one alum, or whoever it is that said, hey, you should go to VMI, and you said, yep, that's what I want to go do, and then you went and did it. Or was the one that got you into VMI. You'll always remember those for the rest of your life, and those defining moments for me were one of my VMI professors had multiple patents, civil engineer professor. We had this idea. All right, what am I going to do with this idea? I have no idea. I think it could be better, but what do I do with it? And he immediately said, got to go patent it. Go get a patent. Go get a patent. All right, well, how do I do that? And, well, he started talking to us, gave us a lawyer, started talking to us about the procedures of how to get a patent. All right, so we're moving down the field a little bit. We're taking another thing. And we met with another guy. We met with a couple of other investors. We met with different people, and they all said, hey, you got to go build it. You just got to go build it. I don't care if it's a one-fifth model, if it's this or that or whatever, go build it. Okay? So that's what we did. That gentleman, his name's Bob Bailey. I'll never forget that conversation. He was just, every time, he's like, go build it, go build it, go build it. All right, what else should we do? Go build it. All right, I got it. I'll go build it. Then, as we're going through, I'm still active duty at this time, and getting ready to do a workup. And one of our instructors also had multiple patents, and had his product actually manufactured, and he was selling it. And so we started talking to him, and he put us in touch with our manufacturer. Our manufacturer that we still use today, all came from a few key pieces from our network that I leveraged to help me grow somewhere. And that's one of the pieces that I want to talk about is just that, leveraging your network to fill the gaps that you might have for something, right? I'm not a smart person. In fact, I'm really dumb. But I know how to build a team, and I can build it better than anyone else in here because I know where I fell short, and I'm going to leverage my network faster and harder than anyone else, and I'm going to fill that gap to make myself and to make us successful, and then leveraging that to grow and expedite that process. So 2010, we started selling. We started Mapbox. 2013, we actually started selling our first product. That cargo net is still for sale. So if anyone's interested in cargo net, I've got one for sale because we haven't sold one yet. But our other products have sold. So that's the other part. 2015 was a big transition for me. Was going through, getting ready to leave a career that from the age of 12 years old, I've wanted to do. From 12 years old, I told my mom and my sisters, I'm going to be a SEAL. The VMI thing kind of happened, in between, but I wanted to be a SEAL from 12 years old, and I knew that that's what I was going to do, and I planned to be a SEAL my entire life. I was going to retire as a SEAL. 2000, before 2015, because 2015 was when I actually separated off of active duty, but a couple years before that, I made the decision that it wasn't the right for me anymore, and I needed to separate. So after 10 years of being active duty, I'm positioning myself now for transition. So what do, I go back into my network and start looking at my network. Work with Bob Loudon here, veteran crowd, who invested time and capital into me. I still owe you. But seriously, I didn't know what was going to happen. I thought I had a potential job as I was transitioning out of the military. In less than 60 days from the time I'm transitioning, I find out that they don't have funding to do this job anymore. And now I'm going to go without a job, with kids, with a family, and I was making $100-some thousand a year as a SEAL officer, and now I'm going to make nothing. And I've got to figure out where to find a job now and I got to do it in the next 60 days, where I'd been planning for months now of transition and thought it was going to go smoothly, and it didn't. But having that ability to tap back into that network and know that you can rely on those people that you may have only had one or two or maybe 3 conversations with somebody, but not being afraid to go up to them and say, I need your help, and I need it now. And then knowing, again, what I talked about earlier is being able to go back and say, now that's my turn to give back. And that's where I'm at with a lot of my relationships, is how do I give back to and how do I help them as much as they've helped me. 2015, we started, I met a gentleman named Bruce, who's the CEO of our company, Strikeforce Energy. We started the company only a few months later. We were the #1 new release energy drink in 2016, our first year in business. We are in roughly 1,000 retail locations, and about 95% of our business is online still. 67% customer retention rate. Not saying this is anything to brag or anything like that, but I know we passed out about 500 samples, so about 335 of you better come back or buy, or I'm going to kill you. You like that math? I wrote that one down. Now, the big thing that I wanted to talk about, and really overall about being an entrepreneur, I know I talked about being a jack of all trades and a master of none. For me, I was an active duty SEAL, had a family, and by the way, trying to do a startup. And then, as I'm transitioning out of the military, launch another startup. And so, what does that take? It takes me being able to achieve this. You have to quit. You have to quit everything that doesn't help you achieve those goals. That means quit watching football on Saturday or Sunday. Quit playing Fortnite, unless you're streaming, and then talk to me afterwards, and we might talk about sponsorships. But seriously, when you look at everything that you do that fills up your time, if that doesn't help you get to your end goal, you have to quit it. I don't care what it is, you have to quit that. Streamline everything so that now you focus your efforts on what are your priorities. And if that's how, and that right there will be the success part of it. And then at the end of the day, you can accomplish anything by doing that. You think about right now at VMI, you might have 15 hours of homework, but you better figure out how to put that into 5 hours of actual time, because the next morning it's due, and you're not getting any sleep, and you got 15 hours of homework to do. So you got to prioritize those efforts. Sometimes you might have to quit on something and not do a particular problem or a particular thing to make sure you get the grades you need to in another course. For me, my priorities: family, work, working out. It's pretty simple. If it doesn't fall into that, I really don't spend time on it. I have friends and things like that, but mainly my friends, I talk to them about family, work, or working out. It's boring. I don't care, because I'm on a mission and I'm going to go do certain things, and I'll get to that here in a little bit. There's no such thing as work-family balance. If you try to balance it, you're going to fail at both of them. You're going to fail at your family, you're going to fail at your work. And again, I go back to priorities of effort for me, and that's how I've been able to time management and look at a problem If I've got 5 hours of family time, I devote 5 hours to family time and I give it 100%. I don't work. I push that off to the side. If I have work time, it's work time. So it's building those priorities of effort into your schedule and time management in that. And so you're not trying to combine two things. And I would tell you, I sometimes fail at this, as my wife will probably tell you, not giving enough family time. But I try really hard to balance that and work those efforts to prioritize those efforts so that when I have that particular time and it's family time, that's family time. I don't want to work. I want to spend time with my kids. I want to spend time with my wife. Now, again, that could change if they say, hey, Dad, great. You want to go play basketball? I don't want to play basketball. I want to go play with another friend. All right, we'll see you later. I'm going to go work. Right? So that's how that can work sometimes. And then you're back to spending time and focus on whatever you got to do for work. So we talked about Citizen Soldier. We talked about here at VMI a lot. And VMI is no better place for cadets to become entrepreneurs. You're doing less. You're doing more with less. You're having to do all these time management drills. You're constantly trying to fit 30 pounds of stuff into a 10-pound sack. It's always ingrained into you from day one. You're also from day one on the leadership side of things. I talked about it earlier during a podcast, but from day one, you're learning how to lead and follow right from the beginning. So you come in, RDC or cadre comes in, starts yelling at you. Well, you're following at this point, and then all of a sudden they flip a switch and they say, all right, now, hey, John Smith, go lead these guys. Now you're trying to lead your peers, which is probably some of the hardest things you'll ever have to do. And that's when you get into the military and when you get into entrepreneurship, sometimes you're going to lead guys that have a lot more experience than you do. They're going to have, they might be older than you, but yet you're going to have to understand how to or when to lead that person and when to follow that person and to be successful at that. And then we talk about leveraging that network. Really, I can't stress it enough what the power of VMI network and alumni bring to the table. You guys are just scratching the surface at it, and I would challenge you all, if you don't figure out who your local alumni network is when you move somewhere, figure out how to tap into it. It will be invaluable, and it will even springboard you even further along than your own peers of your graduating class if you start tapping into that. So I talked about my priorities, family, work, working out. I am here, and I am building an empire that's going to empower people, hopefully a lot of people, and we're ready to save lives and bring disruptive, innovative technologies all across the world. Thank you guys for your time and attention. I'm going to open up for questions if anyone has any questions. Sweet, I nailed it. Nothing.
Thanks so much, man. That was awesome. For your energy drink, which is awesome. I've been drinking it all night, by the way. It's pretty amazing. What was it that got you to just blow up so quickly? I mean, that's just almost unheard of to get that much traction that fast.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, really, it comes down to a few things. The product is a quality product. We really pride ourselves in customer service. Again, we talk about networking and things. That's our network right there is our customer service, and we're trying to leverage them to keep buying and keep buying and keep buying from us. And so that doesn't go without having absolutely phenomenal customer service. So everything that we've done so far to date, how does this affect our customer service? How does it affect our ability to get the product in someone's hands quick? Because everybody wants stuff yesterday. And, if we, we've been asked 10 million times, why don't you do this flavor? Why don't you do this? Why don't you do this? Why don't you do this? That's not where we're done. We're laser focused on these 4 products. This is what we can do. We're able to get orders out that same day because we know that if we add another flavor, well, it seems like one flavor, but it's actually like 6 different SKUs because we have a 10 count box and a 40 count box and this, variety pack, and then we add shirts and all these other different things. It adds a complexity to fulfillment that we're not comfortable doing because it's going to hurt our customer service. And so having that good customer service, having a quality product, and ultimately filling a gap in the market where we saw the gap that we saw when we came up with this was from a sheer logistics standpoint. 50 pallets of Red Bull is 1 pallet of my stuff. I could ship this all over the world. I don't need distribution. I'm my own distribution, well, using UPS and FedEx and all those, but Amazon. We can get our product all over the world. We've shipped to over 40 countries because I don't need to rely on a local, beverage distributor or getting in with this house or getting in over here. I can just ship it directly to the customers all around the world to do that. And then, that leads into a few other things for kind of filling in a gap that we saw in the market.
Thank you for coming to speaking today, sir. I have a quick question for you. You emphasized earlier about how the things that don't help you achieve what you want to, you quit. For instance, watching football, wasting time. How do you mentally just sort of turn that off, in a sense? How do you just solely turn your focus onto the things that you want to do and not let yourself be distracted? I mean, I know for you, obviously, through your career, it's developed quite a bit, but, as a teenager, I still struggle with the distractions here and there.
We all do. I mean, at the end of the day, you're always going to. I mean, we're humans, right? At the end of the day, I mean, I know that if I go and when I go do, like, for example, I watched a little bit of the couple of the games this last couple weekends or for Final Four, right? I don't even know what they're called because I don't watch them enough. But I watched a couple of the Final Four games, right? But I also knew, I was there with family, so spending time with family to do something like that. But any time that I take away from business and my work, I know that I'm going to have to figure out how to either not make it up, but the work's always going to be there, right? So I'm making a conscious effort to, all right, I'm devoting my time and effort to family right now, right? My emails are going to keep coming in my inbox, and they're going to keep coming, and then I prioritize what I need to tackle based on just, kind of triage, kind of management stuff. So you just have to look at really where your priorities lie and ultimately what you're willing to sacrifice. If you're willing to sacrifice 8 hours to watch football, well, that could have been 8 hours that you were working on your business, right? To me, I'm not willing to do that. Do I watch TV from now and time to time? Yeah, I sure do. But typically I have my laptop on my lap and working while I watch TV, and I might not be as efficient than I normally am when have no other distractions. But that's okay because it's a way that I can decompress and still do some work too.
Good evening, sir. My name is Cadet My question for you is this. In your officership as a Navy SEAL and your career as an entrepreneur, what have been the biggest friction points that you've faced?
Biggest friction points? I guess some of the hardest things, right now for us, we want to run, and we want to run really fast, and sometimes that doesn't happen at the same speed that you think it should or could. Others look at us and say, man, you guys are exploding, and we want to go faster, right? So, some of that friction of maybe wanting to grow and be there quicker, and then but also having others tell you, hey, you know, let's throttle back, let's take a pause, let's do that. So, you know, kind of trusting some of these others that might be looking at your business or what you're doing from an outside perspective, and giving you that advice that maybe what you want to do is not the right answer. Maybe you should take a step. So it's not really a friction point, I would say, but it's just it's something that is frustrating because, you know, I know all, but you got to trust those other people that you have in your network and who you rely on to mentor you for that advice.
Thank you.
Bob, nothing? Spare me. Can't do it. Can't do it.
I have a guest here and wanted to ask a question, but he's an Air Force guy, so he's afraid of the VMI guys. So he wants to know, he's a venture capitalist from Chicago. He wants to know about a decision that you made that was a failure and how you recovered from it.
Decision that I made, the decision that I made that was a failure, how I recovered from it. So last year, last year we, you know, we've been growing really well. We're trying to do some more traditional marketing methods, and this particular marketing, we figured, okay, you know, we're going to get in front of 8, 9, 10 million people every time our ads are playing. So it should be able to, even if we get 1% of the people to convert, you know, it's going to more than pay for itself, you know, 3 or 4 times over. So, all right, let's go do this. So we spent, you know, 25 grand a month on this ad campaign for a couple months, doing national radio, and it absolutely failed miserably. We got, I think we ended up earning back about $1,000 on the whole deal. And, you know, we went through and talked to, you know, everybody in the team and the company, and, you know, hey, all right, so this is what the messaging is going to be like. This is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to position it. We're going to do this. We're going to give back. We're going to, like, we had all of this stuff lined up, and I mean, it looked and sounded like it was going to be perfect because it was our summer campaign last summer, actually. We were doing a buy one, give one. And we figured, you know, maybe a little bit older generation that might not be buying the drink for themselves, but they're willing to spend $10 to know that we're going to donate $10 and get this product downrange to soldiers, sailors, and Marines downrange. So it was a buy one, give one type deal. We were donating it. And that was the messaging. That was all of it. And like I said, it failed miserably to come across. So how we recovered from it after we licked our wounds of spending all that money for nothing, we were still able to donate a lot of product because we were able to, we got onto Fox and Friends, pushed out some stuff doing that with them, as well as partnered up with a couple other nonprofits to get that moving so we could still do a large donation to the military and get that product. I think we ended up donating over $30-some thousand of product downrange, as well as to law enforcement and police officers around the country. From what we learned from that is, you know, we don't have the brand awareness yet for those types of messaging and those opportunities. So, you know, going back to what we knew, and that's, you know, leveraging influencer marketing, direct to consumer, you know, going that more social media route rather than try to go a more, you know, traditional marketing, because it's just we know that it works, right? But it's going to take tens of millions of dollars to make that happen, and we don't have that yet. It's like the MyPillow guy, right? Everyone, you buy a pillow once a year, but that guy plays on that air every single day, 4 or 5 times a day, and you know it, because the next time you buy a pillow, you're going to buy a MyPillow. Yeah, sheets too. So I got a question for any of the cadets. Or anybody, raise your hand if you want to go to Buds. Anybody? Nobody? Quitters.
Sean, so this is something that we're struggling with, but how do you have such a leadership, right, senior level leadership position in multiple companies at the same time? How are you able to do, a really good job across 2, maybe 3 different businesses that are in completely different industries?
I wouldn't tell you I'm doing a good job. Again, so how I prioritize the various companies, I can tell you I know about this much about medical. Again, just enough to make myself dangerous, and then to know I know not enough to get into a conversation with a doctor. But I can at least have that initial conversation to set up that conversation with my business partner who went to med school for 3.5 years, and have a conversation with him and our CTO for that company, who is a 36-plus year electrical engineer professor, has all the patents for everything and can speak exactly to every, atom and things that happen on that type of product. So I know enough to get me this, skin deep on it, and then I'm able to turn it right off to them. But having that awareness of, okay, I'm not going to try to get into, I can tell you right now, I would never try to go pitch that product. I know enough that I could pitch it, but if there's anyone in this room that even knew, a tenth of what I even know, they would be able to ask me something that I'd sound like an idiot, and then ultimately that would leave a bad impression into them. So I don't even begin to try to do that in that. For Matbach specifically, that's our flagship company. That's the one we started with. My business partner and I, we try to go left seat, right seat, back and forth on kind of who's kind of doing, but also he has different skills than I do. He can come up, he can see this piece of paper and tell you, oh, I can make this into, an origami, and this is how you do it, and go through it, where I need to see the blueprints, the step-by-step drawings of it. I'm the guy that can follow the Lego instructions, but I can't create that instruction. I can't create the end product. It takes me too long to try to figure that out. So, but what I can do, and I do it way better than he does, is, some of the accounting stuff, some of the understanding of financial stuff, marketing, some of those areas. So we figure out where, even internal to the company, where our strengths and weaknesses are. And same thing with Strikeforce. Got a guy who's, on his 5th company right now, understands how to be an entrepreneur, how to build and how to grow and do these things. Very intelligent, very forward-thinking. Sometimes I'm just like, oh my gosh, that is a great idea. Where'd that come from? And he's like, I don't know, I was just thinking about it. But he's the guy that I need to keep doing that. I can't get him to check his email to save his life, but that's fine. I know that, I don't send him emails. I give him a call. So figuring out, even internal to your own team, what your strengths and weaknesses are, and again, leveraging where you have those gaps and filling them with someone that can fill that gap for you.
Out here.
Mr. Matson, thank you for returning the post to share your insights on entrepreneurship with us. On behalf of the superintendent, faculty, staff, and the Corps of Cadets, we'd like to present you with this small gift as a token of our appreciation.
Appreciate it.
Thank
Thanks. Thanks. Thank you.